The rancher's distant bride by Evelyn Merrick. The clatter of horseshoes against stone announced the arrival of the stage before it came into view. Katherine Harding clutched her gloved hands tightly in her lap, the leather of her traveling bag worn beneath her fingers. After 3 weeks of jolting travel, she had arrived at last, the town of Cottonwood Springs. "Last stop," bellowed the driver. Katherine steadied herself as the coach jerked to a halt. Outside the window, the small western town spread before her, a far cry from her Boston home. A single dirt road lined with weathered buildings, a mercantile, a saloon, and what appeared to be a small church at the far end. This place would be her new home. "Need help with your bags, miss?" The coach driver peered in through the door he'd swung open. "Yes, thank you." Katherine gathered her skirts and stepped gingerly onto the wooden platform. The air was different here, crisp and clean, tinged with pine from the distant mountains that framed the valley. "You must be the mail-order bride," the driver commented, handing her the valise. "Mr. Thornton's been in town twice this week, asking after the stage." Katherine felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Yes, I'm to meet Mr. Thornton today." "Well, there he stands." The driver nodded toward a tall figure across the street. Katherine turned, her breath catching. She had seen only a daguerreotype of Daniel Thornton, but the image had not done justice to the man who now approached. Broad-shouldered and tanned by sun, he moved with the confident stride of a man comfortable in his own domain. His dark hair was longer than fashion dictated back east, and his clean-shaven face revealed a strong jaw and features that seemed carved from the same rugged stone as the mountains behind him. Daniel Thornton stopped a respectful distance away, removing his hat. "Miss Harding?" "Mr. Thornton." She extended her gloved hand, which he took briefly, his touch warm even through the fabric. "Welcome to Cottonwood Springs." His voice was deep, with a hint of hesitation. "I trust your journey was tolerable?" Katherine managed a smile. It was long, but not unbearable. An awkward silence fell between them, filled with the weight of their arrangement. 3 months of exchanged letters had led to this moment, a marriage agreement between strangers, born of practical necessity rather than affection. "I've arranged a room for you at Mrs. Whitney's boarding house," Daniel said, breaking the silence. "I thought you might want to rest before." He cleared his throat. "Before we proceed with the wedding." Katherine nodded gratefully. "That's very considerate." "It's the proper thing," he replied, taking her bag. "The minister can perform the ceremony tomorrow, if that suits you." "Yes, that would be fine." Katherine followed him down the dusty street, aware of curious eyes watching from shop fronts and windows. She kept her back straight, chin lifted, just as her mother had taught her. Daniel indicated a neat white building with green shutters. "This is Mrs. Whitney's place. She's expecting you." As if on cue, the door swung open, revealing a plump woman with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes. "You must be Miss Harding. Come in, come in. You poor dear, you must be exhausted." "Thank you, Mrs. Whitney." Katherine turned to Daniel. "Until tomorrow, then?" Daniel nodded, replacing his hat. "I'll call for you at 10. He hesitated, then added, "I'm glad you've arrived safely, Miss Harding." As he walked away, Katherine watched his retreating form. Tomorrow she would become Mrs. Daniel Thornton, wife to a man she barely knew, mistress of a ranch she had never seen. She had made her choice when she answered his advertisement. A man seeking a wife, offering security and respectful treatment in exchange for a woman's help in building a life in this untamed territory. Her father's death had left her with few options in Boston. This arrangement, though unconventional, offered her a new beginning. But as she followed Mrs. Whitney inside, Katherine couldn't help but wonder if she had made a terrible mistake. "The Thornton place is the finest ranch in the county," Miss Whitney said the next morning as she helped Katherine dress for the wedding. "Daniel's father built it from nothing. When both his parents died of fever 5 years ago, Daniel took over, barely 22 years old. He's done well for himself, that young man." Katherine stood still as Mrs. Whitney fastened the buttons of her blue silk dress, the finest she owned, saved for this occasion. "He seems reserved." "Oh, he's not much for talking, that's certain, but he's fair and honest, works harder than any man I know." Mrs. Whitney smiled. "And he's been fixing up the house this past month. New curtains, fresh paint, even bought a proper bathtub from Denver. Not many ranch houses have such luxuries." Katherine's throat tightened. These small considerations revealed something about the man she was to marry, something her mother would have called quality of character. "There," Mrs. Whitney stepped back. "You make a lovely bride." Katherine examined her reflection in the small mirror. The journey had left her paler than usual, her brown hair simply arranged beneath a modest hat adorned with silk flowers. Not the grand wedding she had once imagined as a girl, but perhaps more meaningful for its simplicity. A knock at the door announced Daniel's arrival. He stood on the porch, dressed in a dark suit, his hat in his hands. For a moment he seemed unable to speak. "You look beautiful, Miss Harding," he finally said. "Thank you." Katherine accepted his arm, feeling the solid strength beneath the suit jacket. The church was small but well maintained. A handful of townspeople had gathered to witness the ceremony, curious about the Eastern woman who had come to marry one of their own. Reverend Miller's service was brief. Katherine spoke her vows clearly, though her heart pounded so loudly she feared everyone might hear. Daniel's voice was steady, his hand warm as he slipped a simple gold band onto her finger. "I now pronounce you man and wife." Katherine lifted her face as Daniel bent to place a chaste kiss upon her lips, their first physical contact beyond a handshake. His lips were warm and surprisingly gentle, gone almost before she could register the sensation. "Mrs. Thornton," he said quietly, offering his arm once more. Outside, several townspeople offered congratulations. Katherine smiled and thanked them, trying to memorize names and faces that blurred together in her nervousness. "Ready to see your new home?" Daniel asked when the well-wishers had dispersed. Katherine nodded, allowing him to help her into a wagon laden with her trunks that had arrived on yesterday's stage. As they left town behind, following a winding dirt road through rolling hills, she ventured to break the silence. "How far is the ranch?" "About 5 miles, Daniel replied, not too distant but far enough for peace. Katherine observed his profile as he drove. There was a gentleness in his handling of the horses that contrasted with the strength evident in his frame. "I should tell you," Daniel said suddenly, "the house isn't grand like what you're likely used to in Boston, but it's solid and clean." "I'm sure it will be lovely," Katherine replied, "and I'm not afraid of work, Mr. Thornton." "Daniel," he corrected. "Seems right you should use my given name now." "Daniel," she repeated, tasting the unfamiliar intimacy, "and I'm Katherine." He nodded, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. "Katherine." They crested a hill, and the Thornton ranch spread before them. A large log house with a wide porch stood proudly against the backdrop of pine-covered mountains. Nearby stood a barn, corrals, and several outbuildings. Cattle grazed in distant pastures, and a stream wound its way across the property. "It's beautiful," Katherine said, genuinely impressed. Daniel's posture relaxed slightly. "This is Thornton land as far as you can see to those mountains. My father chose well. And you've built upon his work." "Tried to," he acknowledged. As they drew closer, Katherine noticed the fresh paint on the house, the carefully tended flower beds beside the porch. Someone had made an effort to create beauty in this wild place. A bark announced their arrival as a black and white dog bounded toward the wagon. Behind the dog came a boy of about 12, his face alight with curiosity. "That's Jake," Daniel explained. "He helps around the ranch. He lives in town with his mother, but stays here most days." Katherine smiled at the boy as Daniel helped her down from the wagon. "Hello, Jake." "Miss," the boy replied shyly. "Congratulations on your wedding." "Thank you." Daniel carried her trunk to the porch. "Jake, help me with the rest of Mrs. Thorne's things." He paused, then added, "Katherine, make yourself at home. I'll show you around once we've unloaded." The front door opened directly into a large room that served as both parlor and dining area. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, and windows let in ample light. The furniture was solid and well-made if not fashionable, and true to Mrs. Whitney's word, crisp curtains framed the windows. Katherine moved deeper into the house, finding a well-equipped kitchen with a modern cast-iron stove. Beyond that, a short hallway led to what was clearly the master bedroom. Fresh bedding covered a large four-poster bed, and a washstand held a porcelain basin and pitcher. A rocking chair sat near the window, with a small table beside it. The significance of the bedroom, their bedroom, brought heat to Katherine's cheeks. Tonight, she would share this space with Daniel. They would truly become husband and wife. It's not much compared to Boston homes. Katherine turned to find Daniel watching her from the doorway, his expression guarded. "It's a lovely home," she replied honestly. "You've gone to great trouble to make it welcoming." Something in his face softened. "I wanted it to be comfortable for you." The simple statement revealed more about her new husband than all their letters combined. Whatever his reasons for seeking a bride through advertisement, Daniel Thornton was a man who cared about doing things properly. "Thank you," Katherine said softly. Their eyes held for a moment before Daniel looked away. "I'll show you the rest of the ranch after supper, if you'd like. Jake's mother sent food for our wedding dinner." "That was kind of her." "Folks look after each other out here," Daniel replied. "It's how we survive." The wedding supper was simple but delicious: roast chicken, fresh bread, and a sweet apple pie. They ate at the oak table, Daniel at one end, Katherine at the other, with Jake between them. The boy's presence eased the awkwardness, his cheerful chatter filling the silence as he told Katherine about life on the ranch. "Daniel's teaching me to break horses," Jake said proudly. "He says I've got a natural way with them." Daniel's lips curved in a rare smile. "Jake's the best help I've had. Been working here since he was 9. My pa died in a mining accident," Jake explained matter-of-factly. "Daniel gave me work so I could help Ma." Katherine saw her husband differently in that moment, a man who recognized a child's need for purpose and pride as much as coins. After Jake departed for town, promising to return in the morning, Daniel and Katherine sat on the porch as evening painted the western sky in shades of pink and purple. "It's beautiful here," Katherine said, breathing in the pine-scented air. "Different from Boston, I expect." "Yes, but in a good way." She glanced at him. "I never thought I'd leave the city. After Father died, I worked as a teacher at a girls' academy. It was a respectable position, but not what you wanted," Daniel finished. "I wanted something that was mine," Katherine admitted. "The academy provided room and board, but little else. When I saw your advertisement, it offered possibility." Daniel studied her thoughtfully. "And now that you've seen what you've committed to?" Katherine considered the question. "I think possibilities still exist here. Different ones than I imagined in Boston, but no less valuable." Daniel nodded slowly. "I wasn't sure you'd come, even after you agreed. Women from the East, they don't always find happiness here." "I'm not afraid of hard work or simple living, Daniel. My father was a scholar, but my mother taught me practical skills. I can cook, sew, keep accounts. I even helped Father with his correspondence." "I'm glad to hear it," Daniel said. "Running a ranch takes all hands working together." As darkness fell, the awkwardness between them returned. Katherine knew what was expected on a wedding night, but the reality of sharing such intimacy with a stranger made her hands tremble. "I've prepared the spare room," Daniel said, suddenly surprising her. "For tonight. You must be tired from your journey." Relief and confusion mingled in Katherine's chest. "But we have time," Daniel said gently. "I don't expect, that is, I want you to be comfortable here first. We may have said vows today, but trust takes longer to build." Katherine blinked back, unexpected tears at this consideration. "Thank you." "Good night, Katherine." Daniel stood, hesitated, then bent to place a gentle kiss on her forehead before retreating inside. Katherine remained on the porch, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. Daniel Thornton was not what she had expected. Behind his reserved manner lay a thoughtfulness she hadn't anticipated. Perhaps, in time, this arrangement might become something more than practical necessity. The following weeks established a routine that gradually felt less foreign. Katherine rose early, preparing breakfast before Daniel returned from his morning chores. They ate together, discussing the day ahead before he returned to ranch work. Katherine took charge of the household, learning the rhythms of ranch life. She discovered Daniel's orderly nature extended to his business affairs. His father had taught him to keep meticulous records, which Katherine now helped maintain. She found satisfaction in organizing the accounts, impressed by the ranch's prosperity under Daniel's management. Their evenings were spent in companionable conversation. Daniel was well-read despite his limited formal education, and Katherine enjoyed discovering this aspect of her husband. They shared the spare room in rotation, maintaining a respectful distance that both comforted and increasingly frustrated Katherine as her admiration for Daniel grew. On Sundays they attended church together, then visited Mrs. Whitney for dinner. The townspeople gradually accepted Katherine, especially after she volunteered to help with the school's reading program one afternoon each week. The children adore you, Daniel commented one Sunday as they drove home from town. I miss teaching, Katherine admitted, though I don't miss the strictures of the academy. Daniel glanced at her. Perhaps you could establish a small school at the ranch, for the children of our workers and neighboring farms. There's no proper education beyond basic reading for miles. Katherine turned to him, surprised by the suggestion. You wouldn't mind? Mind? It's a fine idea. There's the old storage cabin near the main house. It could be converted easily enough. His voice warmed with enthusiasm. We could order proper books and slates from Denver. We, Katherine repeated softly, noting how naturally the word came to him now. Daniel's expression softened as their eyes met. Something had shifted between them in these weeks, a growing understanding, a deepening connection built on shared purpose and mutual respect. That evening, as Katherine prepared for bed in the room that was temporarily hers, a knock sounded at her door. Daniel stood in the hallway, his expression uncertain. I have something for you, he said, offering a small package wrapped in brown paper. Inside, Katherine found a leather-bound journal, its cover soft and supple. It's beautiful. I noticed you writing letters on scraps of paper, Daniel explained. Thought you might like something proper for your thoughts. The thoughtfulness of the gift moved her deeply. Thank you. Daniel lingered in the doorway. Katherine, he stopped, seeming to struggle with his words. I'm glad you came. I know this isn't what you were raised to expect, but I want you to be happy here. I am happy, Daniel, she replied softly. Happier than I expected to be. He stepped closer, and Katherine felt her heart quicken. When his hand lifted to touch her cheek, she leaned into the contact, savoring the gentleness of his calloused fingers. May I kiss you? He asked, his voice low. Yes, she whispered. Unlike their wedding kiss, this one lingered. His lips moved against hers with careful exploration, learning the shape and feel of her. Katherine's hands settled on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her palms. When they parted, Daniel's eyes held a question. In answer, Katherine took his hand and led him toward the bed they would now share as true husband and wife. Spring yielded to summer, and Katherine's happiness grew with each passing day. Their marriage had blossomed into genuine affection and partnership. Daniel consulted her on ranch decisions, valuing her practical mind and fresh perspective. Katherine threw herself into ranch life, establishing her small school for local children 3 mornings each week. In July, when Katherine missed her monthly courses for the second time, she knew with certainty what had changed. She waited until evening, when they sat together on the porch watching fireflies dance in the gathering darkness. Daniel, she began, her voice trembling slightly with excitement, I have news. He turned to her, his expression curious. What is it? By winter, there will be 3 of us at the Thornton ranch. Daniel stared at her, uncomprehending for a moment. Then understanding dawned, his face transforming with wonder. A baby? You're certain? Katherine nodded, laughing as Daniel swept her into his arms, spinning her around before setting her down with sudden concern. Should I be more careful with you now? I don't know much about these matters. I'm not made of porcelain, Katherine assured him, touching his cheek affectionately. Women have been having babies since the beginning of time. Daniel placed his hand reverently over her still flat stomach. A child, he murmured. Our child. Katherine covered his hand with hers. Are you pleased? Please doesn't begin to describe it. Daniel kissed her softly. I never expected to find this, a true wife, a family of my own. Nor did I, Katherine admitted. When I answered your advertisement, I hoped for security, perhaps companionship. I never imagined I would find love. Daniel's eyes met hers, warm with emotion. Is that what this is? Love? Katherine smiled, remembering the lonely woman who had stepped off the stage months ago, and the reserved man who had met her. How far they had come since that day. Yes, she said simply. That's exactly what this is. Daniel gathered her close as the first stars appeared above the mountains that sheltered their home. Then we've both found what we were seeking, though neither of us knew to look for it. Katherine nestled against her husband's strong chest, content in the knowledge that their marriage of convenience had transformed into something rare and precious. In this wild western land, far from her Boston roots, she had found not just a new beginning, but a love story all her own. The end.